So this is great. We are so excited because we are here to talk today about mysteries and thrillers. And we're here with somebody I met when I was in Sweden last year, Anders de la Motte, who is one of the greats. Welcome, Anders.
What an introduction. Thank you so much.
You can put it on your tombstone.
I think I might do that. These are my business cards.
I'm so excited. When last year, I was in Sweden for the Gothenburg Book Festival. And while I was there, I was very generously invited to dinner by our mutual publisher. And I think, poor Anders drew the short straw because he was seated next to me at this table and forced to speak in English to me the whole night and, answer my questions, my silly questions about not just Sweden, but also about mysteries and thrillers, because as everybody knows, I'm, a romance person, but always interested in how other genre works. And we had, honestly, Anders, like a conversation that I have thought of. I came home, I immediately told Jen about it.
I heard about it right away. Yeah.
And I was
maybe while you were still on the trip even.
Yeah. I was like, we got to get this guy on the podcast. So I'm so excited to have you. Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And we're here with Anders de la Motte.
Yeah, and I read everything I can get a hold of, and I write suspense.
So Anders, tell us. Let's start sort of briefly with how did you come to thrillers? And let's talk first of all about what do you write? You're sort of writing in a wide swath of things.
Yeah, I've tried. I mean, suspense is it's like a big umbrella. There's a lot of subgenres in it, and I've tried to explore really all of them because, like most writers, I'm first and foremost I'm a reader, right? So and I started reading really early. My mom's a librarian, very lucky for me. so I had 24/7 access to libraries since I was 6 or 7 because she had the keys and keys and the alarm code. I could just go in and pick whatever I liked. Right? So.
Also, the library to yourself. It's not just keys in the alarm code. The library to yourself, right?
And with the lights dimmed, and walking around, and that sort of the scent of the old books, and I can still get all excited just thinking about it. But this was in the I'm born 71, so this was in the late 70s, early 80s, which means that weren't that many. There was no YA books or anything like that at the time. So I sort of, when I finished all the books appropriate for my age, I was done. I wanted something else, and my mom said, "Well, you should probably try something suspenseful." What can I pick? Well, let's get you started on Agatha Christie, which is where a lot of suspense writers actually started, and I did too. And I was immediately thrilled by the whole. First of all, the experience and the way the mystery is built and how you're sort of committed to that whole enigma of solving the crime but also I think as I kept reading that how is the writer doing this? How is this person making me? What tools are being? I didn't the first years. I had no idea. I was just immersed in the storytelling. But as time progressed, I was more like, so what? Why do I like this? And I continued into other suspense, into of course horror and Stephen King and everything around that. But ever since then, I've been fascinated by how these little tricks that the writer can use to have the reader experience or feel certain things or look the other way and all that kind of thing. So I've loved that genre really since early days. And then it just happens. So I also ended up having a background that works really well with writing suspense because I'm a policeman and in training, and my first job was in the police force. So that also helps. It's the library thing is way more important than the reading thing, but it certainly helps having that background if you're writing like a police thriller as well. So I always had that idea, and I was pretty good at writing during my high school years. Had no plans of becoming an author whatsoever until I was in my late 30s, I'd say, which is typically where I think a lot of writers sort of there are some, these young prodigies that write their autobiography when they're 22. But most of us are like, you have to have some experience, something to write about.
Well, you get tired of your job.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was exactly it.
Not to put too fine a point on it, Anders.
No, that's it. I was traveling a lot, and I was working. I left the police and I worked in the security industry, and I was traveling a lot, staying at hotels, and I was really bored. And I started thinking, I've read so many books. I kept reading, what would it be like to move from the passenger seat into the driver's seat? Can I actually drive this vehicle? And what do I need to make it to move, right?
And you started in thriller, right? That was
I did.
You started there. And were there thriller writers who you were reading in these hotel rooms and you were thinking, oh, I could do this. I want to write this kind of story.
Yes. And I think especially what really kicked me off was I read a couple of Swedish ones, but I read Dennis Lehane's The Patient. It's called Patients 58, is it? It's Shutter Island, the movie, the book behind the movie Shutter Island. I think it's Patients 57 or 58, can't remember the number. But it's a blend of thriller and a little bit of horror, and it's all, there's a magnificent twist to it if you've seen the movie. At the end you had just everything you've ever seen, right? And I like that, and also there's a movie called The Usual Suspects, which also one of my favorites.
Tremendous.
So I knew I wanted to work with the twists at the time, right? Twists and the pace, which is for thrillers. It's, unless it's a psychological thriller, if it's not a psychological thriller, it's pace that's driving the whole vehicle. So it's pace and then the twists, right? So I knew that was where I wanted to start when I started out, because you have all this, pent up writing, 20 years of writing. You just want to get it out, and that drives the pace for you a little bit. So that's where I started. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. And, when we talk about romance, Sarah and I also talk a lot about sort of the gas in the storytelling engine. And I do think that a really good thriller just has to have a whole lot more gas in the tank, right? It's all gas practically. As a writer, how do you know, what you're planning to do, or does it sort of show itself to you? What would you say? Is it just one big suspense genre, kind of in your brain, and then it drives itself down a certain path?
When I started, I think I just considered it all the same thing. And as you move along, and I've been doing this full time now for, 14 years. And I did, my first book was at 2010. So really 16, 17 years of working the craft. I of course, slowly realized that there are some very big differences in the genre, some different tools, and which is also one of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to try different subgenres as well. Because once you've done thrillers, I wrote 3 high-paced thrillers. Then I've used the pace as the engine for 3 books, and I thought, all right, so there are other engines as well. So, and what are those, and what genre would that take me into if I change the engine to it? So I think it was my curiosity that moved me around. And with thrillers, there are actually 2 types of thrillers, right? There's the typical, high-paced, suspenseful thrillers where a lot of things are going on, and then there's the psychological thrillers. There's really more or less no pace, right? Because it's all character driven, whereas the other thriller is mostly 98% plot driven. Then you would have the character driven, The Girl on the Train or similar ones where everything is inside. Can you even trust the narrator of the story? Can they trust themselves? Can we trust them? That whole thing. So I really wanted to move into that. I moved from high speed, high pace thrillers into the slightly more traditional, police thrillers where you start with a murder and you have a murder investigation.
Like a procedural.
Yes, procedural, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and compared to the thrillers, the thriller is very wide when it comes to rule and the reader-writer contract. So the reader really only expect, this has to be suspenseful, and that's about it. You don't promise them a murder. It could be a murder, but you don't have to have a murder. The main protagonist doesn't have to be a police officer or a lawyer or a good guy. Even they can be a bad guy as well. It's a really narrow, really wide kind of fencing when it comes to the thriller. And then when you move into procedural, well, that shrinks a bit, right? Because the procedural really has to start with a murder.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it has to solve itself.
Dog owner finding corpse in lake.
Sure. It's like Law and Order or
Corpse in
whatever,
lake.
right? Yeah.
Whatever Law and Order would be. Yeah, corpse found. Yeah, scene
Corpse
one,
in
act
lake.
1, scene 1, corpse being found. A lot of times in lakes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask, you said it's all about character, but I was going to ask about setting too, right? Because I feel like a lot of those like atmospheric kind of psychological thrillers are also have like sort of that person versus nature element to them.
Could be. Yep.
Does Gothic live here in the history of this? Do we feel like?
Yeah, Gothic would be a thriller, especially maybe the psychological thriller. You could have like an estate somewhere on lots of fog, and can I trust myself? Did I hear something?
Well, I guess that's Shutter Island-y.
Again, yes, it will be there. So I think the thrillers, especially the psychological ones, would be the ones closest to horror.
You're moving into, you touch the edge of horror, I think we would say. Yes.
With the books I'm writing now, yes, I would say I flirt a bit with that.
The Leo Asker series, is that?
Yes,
that's And Jen has something
this
to say.
is what. Okay, so Sarah's like, we're gonna have this guy on, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna try this King of the Mountain. And everybody listen, I love genre. The reason I love a romance is because I know good things are going to happen to these people. And this book starts with this woman and her boyfriend hiking.
Oh,
seems like a dumb idea,
corpse
but
in a
okay, sure.
Yep.
It's in, and
what could possibly go wrong here?
This boyfriend is clearly a terrible person, and he talks her into going into this like. Essentially like a mine. Some guy told him about this mine we can go into and see this cool.
Let's go into the mine.
We can photograph underground rain.
So they're urban explorers.
Right? They're urban explorers. And I was like, I am an urban explorer. That means I walk to the local coffee shop. It does not mean that I go down into this like mine where like
don't follow your boyfriend into a mine, everyone.
Oh my God. And she is the whole time like I'm having a bad feeling. I shouldn't be doing this. And she does it anyway. And then it's evil, and I was like, I cannot read this, or I need to. I mean, I think for me,
to
like
put it in the freezer, the book.
I was like, you know what? This is when my husband and I watch things like this. I'm like, okay, you just have to tell me what's going to happen right before it's going to happen. Like, as people who are like, no spoilers. I was like, I live and die by a spoiler.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's how you keep your heart rate down.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm making no such promises.
Yeah, but I mean that's the part about like the atmospheric part I was trying to get at too, right? Like if it's psychological in that way, they can't even trust like the world that they live in, regardless of like what that world is. It feels like to me,
yeah. But I mean, thriller I would say the Asker series is a sort of a little bit of a hybrid between it's a police procedural in the sense that it starts with a crime and then there's an investigation, but it's not a typical one because it doesn't follow all the different stops of a regular one, and there's a lot of elements of thriller in it because there's high speed and there's a lot of the main protagonist is in danger a lot, which is typical another one of those thriller tools. Oh no, they're in danger again, right? So
right.
What will happen? End of chapter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another cliffhanger. Wow, there we go. So it's sort of a hybrid between procedural and thriller, and when you're in that area, you can also, like you pointed out, I can flirt a little bit with horror. And then the second one, the Glass Man, there's a little bit of sci-fi in it, alien sightings. It's not about aliens. It's not sci-fi. I'm more interested in the people who claim that they've met aliens. So that's where my interest lies. But there's a little bit of the X-Files, I'd say, in that whole series because I love the X-Files. So that gives you sort of as a writer, you have a lot of creative opportunities when you're in that area. That it doesn't have to be the reader. Writer contract isn't so strict, so you can move around a bit when it comes to genre, and also in the storytelling a little bit, because as long as they feel suspense, they're happy. It doesn't have to be it has to be murder, act 1, scene 1.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Jill Shalvis, author of Falling Into You.
Hazel Pierce is back in Star Falls, and she has 3 goals. That is helping her estranged dad, keeping this strictly temporary and bouncing right back out of town, and absolutely under no circumstances falling for Tucker Colburn again. This plan dies a dramatic and soggy death when a rogue wasp that's Romance Wasp, stings Hazel and makes her swerve off into the road, into the river. And who comes along but the chief of the Star Falls Fire Department, or, whatever, maybe he's not the chief, but the chief of her heart, hauls her out. He's furious. And this is Tucker, of course. This is her ex-best friend, her ex-one-night mistake, and this man she's been avoiding for a decade. But now that she's back in town, it's like all the gossip, everybody's talking about them. Hazel cannot avoid the truth. And so all of a sudden, it's like late-night confessions and slow toe-curling kisses, and Hazel has to decide if she's done running from Tucker or is ready to run right back into his arms.
Well, if you love a protective hero, a small town romance, a forced proximity, second chance romance, this book is going to be for you. Jill Shalvis knows the job. You can get it right now in print, ebook, or audiobook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. And actually, if you'd like a signed paperback copy, you can get it from Word After Word Bookshop. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Jill Shalvis for sponsoring this week's episode. My husband and I are watching Widow's Bay. Do you have this there?
It's on my list. I think I'm going to start watching it this weekend.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Without, giving too much away, it's essentially about an island where, terrible things have happened since the 1700s off the coast of New England, very atmospheric. It's sort of all shot with a gray filter on it. And I think Matthew Rhys is one of the greatest actors of a generation. And so I sort of went into it very blind, not knowing at all what it was going to be. And it is not even knowing that it edged up on horror, right? It's very psychological. It's clear that something is haunting this island. There's something very bad on this island.
Yeah.
And so every episode sort of has a new kind of monster of the week, and that's all I'll tell you about it. And so, and one of
sounds promising. Yeah.
And one of the things that I really like about it is the Matthew Rhys character who plays the mayor of the town. It's a clever conceit because he's known this town much of his life. And he knows kind of instinctively that that there's something pretty bad in this town, but he refuses to admit it. And so he's our protagonist, and he's in a constant battle with, logic. And so all of this is to say there are some very creepy things that happen. But the question that I keep coming away from every episode is, what is the question this show is asking, right? When there's a dead body on page 1, I know the promise of the premise is we're going to figure out what killed this body, right?
Yes.
But when it is sort of overarching evil, and we're not sort of faced with, well, we need to, evil has a face or evil has a purpose, or it's just like a town where bad things happen.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how we refer to that, because obviously this is, Netflix has it coded, or Peacock or whatever show. It's Apple, I think, has it coded as mystery horror. And I think the mystery piece is where I'm curious. Is in order for you referred to this all as an overhanging suspense umbrella. Do we have to know the question we're answering at the beginning?
Ooh, that's a great question.
As a reader and a writer.
I'd say, especially for books, I think for TV series, it's a little bit, there's a little bit more leeway for that, because you can watch it for 5 or 10 minutes and you go, not for me, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to invest in a book and you buy the book and you bring it home and you take time and you open it, you really, most of the time, want to know what it is you're investing your time in, right? So I think it's more important for a book, I'd say, that that they already know the promise of the premise, and that I know what I'm getting myself into here, and I will be very disappointed if it's you're telling me this is a romance and it's not a happy ending here.
Right.
I mean, what is this?
Exactly.
Right? I'm quoting you on that on every lecture I give when I try to say, and for romance, they always end up with each other at the end. Otherwise, it's a love story. Yeah,
right. Otherwise,
really
it's
doing the
story.
Lord's work over there.
See, I learned a lot of things that evening. So, but I think it's for books. I think it's more important than it is for TV series, because I made the same observation that sometimes they're coding it with all different, suspense, humor, mysteries.
Yeah.
How many, And if you're a writer, you don't get that chance. It's either suspense or romance
Yeah.
or whatever it is, but you get like one label on it. So I think that's, again, for books a bit more important. And some readers really want to know from the beginning. Because I'm bringing this book on my holidays, so I need to know that I'm
There's
getting
evil in the mine. What's the evil in the mine?
I'm just bringing one book, So evil.
I'm afraid of the evil in the mine.
And it's sort of the thriller is going to be suspenseful, and it's going to be a police procedural, so it's going to be like a crime and some investigators. So they know that much because it's a sort of a procedure, right? And if you're into like a murder mystery, it's going to be like there's a lot of rules for murder mystery. It's going to be at an exotic location. It's going to be a limited number of suspects. There's going to be someone dead in Act 1 really early, and the murder is not going to be too gruesome. It's going to be inventive but not macabre, right? So there's a lot of those kinds of things when it comes to murder mystery. So. That was a good question. I really need to think about that. But I think the average Netflix viewer is more open to, I'll try this for 10 minutes and see if it catches my interest.
I think this is where genre edges up onto not genre. I think you can do a kind of suspenseful, what is the question we are trying to ask? What is the evil we are really facing outside of genre in an easier way than inside genre, if that makes sense. So like thriller, mystery, horror readers, they have a particular taste.
Yes, you're right. And also, I've come to think about it. I mean, you've seen quite a few TV shows that, as the show progresses into a different season, it also changes character. So it starts out as a thriller or a murder mystery, and all of a sudden it's something very, very different when it comes to season 5 or 6, right?
Like Lost, for example, is a really classic example of they clearly had a plan and then they threw the plan out and then they decided to bring the plan back. And it, felt that way. At the beginning, it was where are they? How are they going to? It was survival. Then there was a character season, and then there was a what are we doing?
They only planned for they had a 3-season arc, and then they got extended for like 3 more seasons. So what do we do now, right?
But I think like that's a weird problem that is presented by TV, where the popularity of a show is what's going to keep it going. Rather than like okay, I have I'm writing this book and it's got to tell the entire story. And if if this character is a hit, I could write another mystery with him. So, I mean, I think like TV gets muddled in that way because of the format rather than because of like the storytelling, the storytelling needs, right, of the people writing it or creating it. Their job is to create a hit show. And if it is, they get to keep writing. Maybe they don't have a vision for what that's going to look like. Buffy, for example.
I think I'm especially sort of sensitive to when they've finished the season and they've solved some problems and the character has reached a certain level of development. And then here comes season 2 or 3. And all of a sudden, everyone's taking a step back and say, well, no, we still have this problem. No, I haven't matured in any way. I'm still this man-child. Well, hang on. We ended the last season, but you solved this problem. And now we're going back. I mean, that makes me lose interest straight away because then I know it's okay. So they couldn't make up something better, so they had to reverse the whole storytelling.
Sure. I mean, that happens all the time in television with romances too. They're so afraid to put two characters together, so they, reverse the story. Let's talk about mystery then. I want to get into this. One of the things that when we met, we talked about these kind of how romance and mystery really are friends in genre, murder mystery at least, because you deal in we in mystery as much as we deal in tropes in romance, right? They're just
we were exchanging tropes the whole dinner, which was really funny.
Well, we talked about how we were joking about only one bed, everybody. And I was explaining how this is like a real, when Anders does not write or read romance novels, but when I explain only one bed, he was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. I want them to be, show up at the hotel and there's only one bed.
And I have to tell you this because then like a few months later, I was discussing the next book with my publisher, and they said, "Well, how about Leo and Martin? How about they end up together in some way in the same car, maybe in the same hotel?" And I was no, that's the single bed. I'm not doing that. So,
I know what that means.
No.
I know where that goes.
and my publisher, she used to she started a romance imprint first, so she is really a romance publisher as well, and she started laughing. So I was like, "Yep, you're exactly right. That's what it is." So we didn't think
you're like, she's like, I laid a trap, and you just jumped right out of it.
No.
But then we talked about how that the comparative kind of trope in mystery is when all the lights go out at a party, and then they come up and somebody's dead.
Somebody's dead.
Exactly.
Yes.
A real kind of could be a little cheesy, but definitely delivers, like gives you a lot of joy as a mystery lover. And so I wonder, like, can you talk about building? So first of all, let's take a step back. You moved into mystery recently. And so let's talk about how and why. And then
I did a couple of police thrillers, and then I did some. I tried to write some more psychological ones where I tried to take pace out of the equation completely, because I knew there were some very good suspenseful books written without a high pace, but it's more difficult. It's an easier tool if you have car chases and people shooting.
Sure.
It becomes suspenseful, right? So if you take that out, you have to work harder. So I wrote a few of those, and then. At the same time as I sort of invented the Aska series, I realized I also wanted to try a murder mystery, because now I've covered almost everything except murder mystery, and that's where I got into that murder mystery scene as well, because it's it's the same toolbox, but it's if you open a toolbox, it opens like this. So you'd have your suspense thriller would be on the right, and the murder mystery would be on the left, and some of the tools are going to be the same, right? But still they're still quite different. So, and one of the things I thought was so interesting with murder mystery is that it, like we said, there's so many rules, and the reader-writer contract is so strict in its format. So you have to follow those, otherwise, no, the reader's not going to follow you. Right? So any Agatha Christie would be a good example, or Murder, She Wrote, or so it's always an exotic location. That's rule number one, right? So it has to be somewhere that normal people don't go. So when it's Agatha Christie, it's an Orient Express, or it's a cruiser on the Nile, or it's a castle somewhere, or a very expensive hotel, or whatever. So you have to have some kind of exotic location, and we picked Italy because my wife is from there. So that works really well. And then it has to be like a limited number of suspects that are put together in some way. Not too many. Typically, it would be like under 10. If it's more than 10, I can promise you they're going to start dying in a high pace.
Well, yeah, you got to clear the deck here.
8 to 10, that's as many as you can keep track of. And typically we had in the first page of the book, we have like a little where everyone's name is mentioned, so you can go back to an index and say, all right, who was that? Oh yeah, that was Colonel so-and-so, right? So yeah, of course.
Okay.
So you would have to have that. And then of course there's a death. There's a murder really early in Act 1, because that's what the whole book is about. And the funny thing about a murder mystery is that the murder, compared to a thriller or police procedural especially, is that the murder is not really a murder. It's a mystery, but it's just disguised as a murder. But really, it's just a mystery. It's an enigma, right? So it's not very realistic. There will be no mourning survivors, no family, no emergency crisis groups, no psychologists, nothing of that. It will be, there's someone dead in the library. Like that, right? And
no one leaves.
And you can be sort of no one leaves, right? It's more like that. So, oh my God, right? But no more emotions than that. So, and you can be sort of inventive when the murder method. You can cut someone's head off with an antique sword. That's fine. But the murderer cannot take the same head, bring it back home, and have it in his fridge.
That's a thriller.
Because then it would be a thriller. That's not a thriller, yeah. So that's no. I am not going to read this. That's too terrible. So because people who like murder mystery, they don't want it to be too scary, right? So
now,
not
I will
scary.
say, in a romance, if you bring that head to your loved one and that person was threatening you, then it is in fact
that's
an
just
act
an
of
act
love.
of love. Not in contemporary, though. Not in contemporary.
In a paranormal romance, we actually have several books. And actually, in that one contemporary, there are guys in the house, and he had to behead somebody with a sword. And it was a sign of love. So, who knew?
I mean, I can see that happening. Just if you disguise it with an act that's better, right?
It's like threatening, right? Like exactly.
It was very disguised. But in that case, the dead body the dead person or creature would have to be the worst. Like it would have, we would all be glad they were dead.
And that's another thing for mysteries. So the person who gets murdered, or persons, typically deserve it. Right. There might be some, but in most cases, most of the cases, it will be like a just murder. I mean, Orient Express, for instance, if you remember the story, it's based on the Limburg kidnapping. So he's a terrible person who's kidnapped and murdered a child. And that's why they all conspire to murder him. So spoiler alert, they all did it.
You should have read that book 80 years ago.
Yes, and seen the film, the 3-4 films made of it, right? So that's one of the things. And another thing is that everyone has a motif, but they're going to have a different motive. So they might share one, but they could have different ones. So it could be rage, it could be financial, it could be revenge, it could be any of the above. But everyone who's there has a motive for murdering, and of course everyone has an alibi.
Of course.
No one could have done it.
Of course,
but we know that someone has to have done it. So the reader is really there for just finding out how the hell did it happen, because it couldn't have happened, but it did happen because he's there and dead.
Right.
So it's all about trying to figure out how this did this happen, and am I as clever as the detective in solving this crime? Because all the leads are going to be there in the story, and it's all about a matter of how do you interpret them.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Little Brown and Company, a wide-ranging publisher with imprints across fiction and nonfiction, including In the Wake of the Ruined by Kaylee Cassidy.
So this is a siren romance. It's actually the second in Kaylee Cassidy's siren romance series. And here we have Imogen Nell, who is a powerful siren now who can no longer hide her magic and her monstrous abilities. This is a problem because Imogen is also the new queen of her world. And she's claimed her ancestral crown alongside this new grotesque siren magic. This magic builds her a bond with an ancient deity who is not great. And Imogen is determined to sever it, but she understands that doing so is not an easy feat. She's dealing with problems on all sides. There is a war looming. There are shifting alliances that she has to manage as queen. Suddenly she's hungering for magic and other things as a siren. And she has these feelings for Theodore, king of Vera, that are really testing her at every turn. Theodore, on his part, is battling the strain of his own crown and his own commitments. And when Imogen suddenly appears on his ship, Siren, every dutiful resolution he's ever made threatens to snap because Siren. As they draw nearer to ending this bad deity, and there's lurking danger, there's a perilous desire for each other that's proving insurmountable. And the question is chaos and ruin and death that Imogen is prophesied to usher into the realm coming? Or is something else coming, Jen?
If you are interested in finding this out for yourself, In the Wake of the Ruined is available in print, ebook, and audio. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Little Brown and Company and Kaylee Cassidy for sponsoring this week's episode.
I think something else is coming.
Sarah.
Maybe two something else's.
Sarah. There's a certain kind of mystery where I get super annoyed and I'll quit every time it happens. Which is, okay, so there's a point in the mystery, I really like it when essentially, it's revealed to me at the same time. You know what I mean? Essentially, I'm figuring it out at the same time the detectives do. But there are some books where, 3/4 of the way through, 2/3 of the way through, the detective is I know who did it. Now I'm going to, lay the trap to catch them. And I'm always shut up. I don't. And I think part of it is.
That's tricky.
It does feel like it kind of, I don't know, that's not what
it's letting the air out of the balloon a little bit.
Yeah. And I really kind of resent it a little bit. If you already know who it is, then just tell me so the book can be over. But no, you need to. There's a way that plotting to me. So it's interesting, but I assume I've read it at least a couple of times that there must be people who actually maybe that's just a way to wrap it up. Some people enjoy, okay, now I'm going to watch the detective be smarter than the suspect. I don't need to be smarter than the detective. I just need the detective to be smarter than the suspect. So is that a, I don't know, how do you feel is it, what does the reader need at the end of a mystery? Is it just for the murder to be revealed.
Yeah, and I think that the one you're describing is a tricky one, because you can maybe do that for a chapter, but I wouldn't do it for longer, because it's going to make, like you're describing it, the reader's going to be impatient and feel slightly stupid, because now the detective is so damn smart and know everything, and here's me, not, and also the other way around is also difficult sometimes, when the reader knows everything that's going on and the detective doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's even more difficult. But if you look at, remember the TV series Columbo?
Of course.
Peter Falk, Columbo. Yeah.
Wait, can I actually tell you?
It's completely built like that. It starts with a murder, and you get, as the viewer, we know everything. He doesn't know anything. And it's all about, can he catch up?
Can he catch up?
And it's done so well, you don't think about it, but the storytelling is done so well that we're still invested, even though we know who did it and why. We're still invested all through the whole story, and sort of we think, no, he didn't solve it. This time he really missed. And then he goes, just one more thing. And then, of course.
Do you want to hear something really, actually? My husband is turning into an old man in front of me, because we have been watching Columbo lately. Yeah. The trick is that the viewer is in the position of knowing more than Columbo, and then it's just also not only watching the minute Columbo sort of gets it, like, this is my guy, but then his process of sort of entrapping him. And I was like, okay, this is all sort of propaganda, fine. But the pacing of old TV shows is just really different than the pacing. There's not a whole lot of violence. I mean, a murder has happened, but it's not gory or bloody. No. The whole thing is just watching Columbo figure it out. And that's why he liked that show. Is it called Poker Face with Natasha?
That is the other show. I was just going to bring that up.
It's on my list as well.
It's Columbo-like. It's the exact same thing, except it's the
inverted story,
it's a little speculative. I mean, I don't know that I would call it speculative, but she has a special power in that she can tell when someone is lying. So, but the writing there is really clever, because the lie is never, I didn't do it. It's always a lie about something that seems innocuous, and she can thread the needle that way.
Follows that trail.
And then, of course, I mean, that's very clever writing also, because there's a overarching problem. She is on the run from bad guys.
Yeah, she's chased by someone. I've read about it. I just haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
It's actually terrific. The mystery piece of it is really clever because of the character, which is what I wanted to come back to mystery-wise. So this series that you're writing... Before
you do, I have to ask you, would it be possible to write a romance with the same inverted storytelling? That you actually tell the readers early that, this is all going to work out fine and they're going to get each other, and then you have to, sort of trace it back? Could it be done?
I think, in romance, one of the ways that people kind of play around with this to limit, some people do it really well, and I think for some people it doesn't work, is there's a real movement, a return to single point of view.
I wanted to talk about
so if it's too. It's male-female romance. It's a woman and a man falling in love, and we only get her point of view. And we as the reader, when she's reporting on his body language and the things that he's saying and acting, understand entirely this man is in love with her, right? But she doesn't know, and so. As the book continues, it's we're watching her figure out what we already know. The problem is remember when you said you can't go on this too long because the reader will get impatient. There's a point in some of these books, if they're clumsily written, where you're listen, you're just dumb. You know what I mean? This man is laid down in front of you and is please step all over me, whatever you need, ma'am. And you don't know that he's into you. And so I think it can be, it's not, it doesn't always work. It takes a lot of skill to make something like that work. But I do think that that's an example of that kind of inversion or hiding something, right?
Romance sort of can't be unreliable. That part of the covenant is that when we tell you something is happening, it is actually happening.
Right.
But I would say, I mean, again, in the like anything, I'm sure, in mystery and thriller and horror, in the hands of a skilled author, anything can be done. And we talk about a book called A Matter of Class by Mary Balow, who is a long time romance queen. And that book tells the story in a way where the reader is being lied to as well for much of the book. And then you sort of discover that you're actually in a romance novel. It's very cleverly done, but virtually impossible to do unless you are just at the top of your game and thinking about craft in like, in many dimensions.
Right. Yeah. And what we say is like in romance, like people can lie to themselves, characters can lie to themselves, characters can lie to each other. Like that's human nature, but characters cannot really lie to the reader. And I think that is not true in a mystery or thriller. You can lie to me all you fucking want to.
In fact, you almost have to, I would think.
I would say that in a murder mystery, they wouldn't do that. But in a thriller, it's especially a psychological thriller, you can lie as much as you like, and everyone, you can trust anyone, including the narrator. Again, I think it depends on subgenre. But you're right. No, we are allowed to lie to the reader. Yeah.
Well, and I think like the question of like unreliability, I feel like to me, it means something really specific when you're talking about fiction, which is like the author is using this as like a tool, right, in the toolbox, as opposed to like me talking about my unreliable narrator. This guy at work is so unreliable. He never does what he's supposed to do. We can't stand working with him. Yeah. That's not what we mean. And I think like sometimes there's some confusion about like the term, but also I think there's some confusion. What we now get is people saying, well, like all narrators are unreliable. And I was like, yeah, but we're not talking about being human, right? Like unreliability as a narrative tool means something different than people are not always honest with themselves. Yeah. So I do think there's also some muddying of the waters with like that particular term.
Yeah, and it's also if you read a couple of those, you're going to be the next book. You're going to open up and go, "I'm not going to trust this narrator," and then it's going to be a boring book. So you can only read every 10th or so. Can be, but,
do that. Right?
Other than that, you go, nah.
So I want to go back to you talking about character, though, because it feels to me like with murder mysteries, also one of the sort of tropes, or maybe it's not a trope, maybe it's just a cornerstone of the text, is this kind of detective or the character who solves the mystery. And it feels like that character really does have to be sort of wholesome or authentic to the reader in a mystery. Is that an accurate way? Like you think about Knives Out, for example, they have to be sort of charming and like disarming. And I mean, you said Jessica Fletcher. I mean, what a perfect kind of bizarre character, right?
Yes. Well, the whole thing with murder mystery is that, like I said, it's all about the mystery. So it's very, very plot driven. It's not character driven at all compared to like a psychological thriller. It's the other way around, right? But maybe you don't think of murder mystery as plot driven because maybe you sort of confuse that sometimes with pace, because a murder mystery is typically not high paced, but it's very plot driven. So the reader is there for the mystery, which means that there's not much time to develop the characters. So that's why they're always, you paint a very quick schematic of what they look like. So you have to realize immediately that this is the protagonist and this is how he or she is working. And with a few sentences, we're going to understand how this person, what makes this person tick and what can we expect of this hero that we're going to sit on the shoulder of and trying to solve the mystery together with. So that means that, Knives Out Benoit, he's a really good character. Hercule Poirot, for instance, I think there's about 40 mysteries with Hercule Poirot. 30 or so. Yeah. What do we know about him?
Nothing.
Of these books, almost
I don't want to know anything about you, right?
We know that he's from Belgium, but everyone says he's from France. So that's like a standing gag because you can have one of those little jokes inside.
Like Columbo and his wife, same thing, right?
Yep, exactly. Or his trench coat or whatever.
Right.
Exactly. So you can do that, and that's about that, and that he's vain and he has this mustache, and and also another thing that people don't think about, that he prefers the company of men, right? So he only travels with men. His only friends are male. There's no really woman involved anywhere, which is I must say, very brave writing for being. She's starting in the 30s, and she's writing of a man who's not a man's man at all.
He spends a lot of time in only one bed situation.
Yes, and also he's very vain. He has these mustache holders, and he's a very vain man. That's not the type of man that's in the 40s. Man's man going to war. Not that type of man at all, right? But that's about all we know about him. So and we don't need anything else because we're there for the mystery, and that sort of ties into both how you pick your Jessica Fletchers or Miss Marple or whatever. You need to know that this is a wholesome person I can trust to solve the mystery, and I'm just going to try and see if I can solve it just as well as he or she does, right? And it also ties into all the suspects. If you look at looking at Agatha Christie, they're all really, quick strokes. There's going to be probably there's going to be a countess with a lot of class but no money. Yeah. There's going to be a retired military of some sort, of course. There's going to be an American or two, always painted in always painted in a slightly, not as nice. Because I think there's a rumor that Agatha Christie's husband had an affair with an American woman, and since then,
he's the one to blame.
He's the one to blame. So they're always, they have money but no class. So,
I mean, it's not exactly wrong, Anders. We're not.
but that's how she saw the world, right? I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying that. So you have a limited time to show the reader all these persons, and they have to get them almost immediately because you don't have that much time to develop them throughout the story, because the story is all about who did it, how, and why, right? So that's why you have a limited window of doing your characters, and that's why they're always a bit too much. The volume is a little bit too loud, because one of the things that is not expected by the reader when it comes to murder mystery is realism, right? So they have no demand whatsoever for realism. If you go to like a police procedural, they expect it to at least feel real, right? This is how the police actually do it, right? Even though it's not the case. But if you go to murder mystery...
we feel the same way in romance, and we refer to it as romance reasons. So you're welcome to use it for mystery reasons. Because
mystery. Oh, that's so good.
Mystery reasons,
right?
For mystery reasons, all these weirdos are at this party.
Right.
And it's and you throw all logic.
Yeah, and it's like whatever reason it is.
I'm going to commit a murder now here at this estate, and I have 52 weeks in a year to choose from, but I'm going to pick the 1 week where Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple or Jessica Fletcher is
for mystery reasons
this week.
Miss Marple,
for mystery reasons.
Yes. Not last week, not the week after. And Jessica Fletcher just happens to be here, and she's one of the most famous detectives whatever. Solves every case, but I'm going to try my chances here. Right?
And no one has noticed that Jessica Fletcher is probably the killer. Like in a thriller, Jessica Fletcher is the one who should be looked at.
Mystery reasons, romance reasons. Yeah, I remember that.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Jess Turner, author of The Only Catch.
So when a public meltdown torpedoes Chloe Foster's culinary career, she has no choice but to reluctantly agree to be the private chef of one of Hollywood's kind of biggest heartthrobs, Charlie Davis. But instead of sunny Los Angeles, she is shipped off to a remote island off the coast of Maine in the dead of winter, which sounds the opposite of Los Angeles. Stuck in a sprawling mansion with a moody A-lister who barely eats, Chloe is hoping to keep her head down, cook her heart out, and regroup. But Charlie is turning out to be more complicated and more tempting than the tabloids suggest. And then there's this rugged local lobsterman with a quiet strength and a wicked smile who offers a very different kind of heat. So, with her career hanging in the balance and her heart pulled in two very different directions, Chloe is going to have to figure out what she really wants. The dream job that wants to find her, or the messy, mouth-watering life that's taking shape on the edge of the Atlantic.
Ooh, so if you would like to find out about The Only Catch, it is available right now in print and with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Jess Turner for sponsoring this week's episode.
I have a follow-up question on this kind of wholesomeness. Is in thriller, as we move away from mystery and back the other side of the toolbox, does the protagonist get less wholesome? Is that required, I guess?
Yes.
You can't have a
More or
wholesome
less.
detective in a psychological thriller.
You can, but then that person will probably not be the main protagonist.
Right. Or they won't be wholesome for long. Like if it's a series, they can devolve, right? Or decay.
Because like you had the single bed or the one room, when it comes to police procedurals turning leaning towards thrillers, you would have like the wounded detective.
Of course.
That would be ours.
I mean, of course.
We
have him too in our he comes over to our side too.
He does, the
Anders, he just needs the love of a good woman.
Or she. In my case, it's a she. So it's a she. They're brilliant, but wounded, childhood trauma, war trauma, some kind of trauma.
Is it possible she needs the love of a good woman? Is what we're saying.
Potentially.
Is that what will fix him?
And then there you go.
Yeah. So we would have a lot of those, and I think I guess there's a slight difference also in the storytelling. I've noticed between the European police procedure storytelling and the American, because you guys still like the Western hero. So it's typically a man who's worked within the CIA, NSA, FBI, police somewhere, but he's left them because he doesn't believe they trust the system anymore. Reacher, exactly. He doesn't trust the system anymore, but he's getting pulled back in for just one more mission.
Lone wolf,
Lone wolf, and he comes in and he has guns blazing, and is smarter, stronger, more clever, shoots better than everyone else, and he solves the problem, right?
Right.
So he's your Western hero, and I like that.
Yeah, we love
Reacher
that guy.
well.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that it's an Englishman who wrote him, but
I know it is. It's very,
Yeah, but he lives in Montana now, Anders. So
that just took all the English right out of him.
He does. But as when it comes to the European, especially I guess the Scandinavian, our heroes when it comes to at least the procedurals, they are more teamwork. So there'll be a main or two protagonists, but there will also be like a team. So we're helping each other. They're still working mostly within the system. They may not, like the whole system, but they still believe in it, right? And they try to work from within the system to solve the problem, the system way. And I think that's two quite, I'm generalizing, but it's two big differences between the storytelling when it comes to that particular genre.
But this goes back to what I talked about, what we have talked about many, many times on the podcast, and what I talked about that night in Sweden with you that night in Sweden. So Jane Ann Krentz, who is a romance novelist, sort of brilliant, long-standing romance novelist, talks about genre carrying the myth of a society, right? That we as genre writers are myth makers. And so what are the stories we are writing down for future generations to understand the world that we experience and the life that we experience? And it does feel like it makes sense that in Scandinavian countries, the detectives believe in the system in a way that in American mysteries, they don't. And so I think there is something very novel about that. I also think that speaks to that when you think about Scandinavian, when you think about, the big thrillers, the big mysteries or thrillers, at least of the last, say, 2-3 decades, they are largely Scandinavian. Which means we all sort of long for it, maybe.
And I think what made the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Lisbeth Salander a big hit, but she wasn't the typical Scandinavian hero. She's like the lone gunman.
Yeah,
and there was very few of those written in Scandinavia whatsoever. We were all writing the teamwork things, and here she comes, and she's still the lone gunman. I think that's one of the reasons why it also really appealed to the American
that audience.
Because that audience, because I think we were longing for that character a little bit, and for you it was sort of a familiar character, but in a different setting than the usual.
But also a character who is very different than our sort of like tough, reachery, guy.
No, she's the opposite.
She's not that. Exactly, she's a hurt. She's a kid.
She's a wounded,
Yes, the wounded detective. She has a huge childhood trauma and everything that goes.
And we never learn about huge childhood trauma over here on our side. I mean, now maybe we do, but that's certainly not how
not how
we're not familiar with Reacher's deep childhood trauma, are we?
No.
No. Reacher was Reacher when Reacher was Reacher when he was 5.
Yeah, he just
right?
had a toothbrush and a
yeah, right.
extra
But no,
large
like they're
t-shirt.
literally Sarah. I'm actually not kidding.
Clearly the biggest 5-year-old in his kindergarten.
Well, yeah, but no, you guys.
Clearly,
okay, wait.
by far. Yeah.
That actually is literally the case, because there's a part in Reacher where, he was a military brat, and they talked about like doing some sort of like essentially like this thing where they accidentally showed a horror movie, and that all the other kids ran away and Reacher ran like towards it as a child. Like this is Reacher is who Reacher is, because Reacher is Reacher, right? But I think what's interesting from what you were saying is like, so I obviously love Reacher and have read it a bunch of times. I have a friend I've read it with. And the thing that was when I finished Reacher, right? I was like, okay, I would love to read this. I would love to read a character like this, but like a woman, a single woman who's like, solving crimes or whatever. And someone recommended some to me, and I tried them, and I hated all of them. And the thing that I realized is I am not actually interested in a woman who's that alienated from society. That to me is a tragedy. Mm. And so the Reacherness of Reacher, right? Him having literally like no ties to other humans, except as he drifts through town, is to me ultimately very sad. But I don't care because it's a man, no offense, right? And I have been served that character so many times in so many ways that it didn't really even feel emotional to me. But the minute I read a woman in a similar situation, I was like, oh, I can't read this. This is terrible. Yeah. Right?
That's a fantastic point. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, no, I think it would be a very, very sad story. Yeah, she just moves around.
It was. I can't remember the name of it, but I read a couple of them, and I was like, "This is terrible. I don't want to read this. I will read more Reachers. Now I'm reading these Orphan X books. Fine."
I think we have higher expectations also of a female protagonist. I think that's the case too. Yeah, we expect more of them.
Right. Yeah. I think romance has taught me that. Right.
Well, and from women, I think female protagonists sort of require, if you have a female protagonist, at least in publishing, right, there is this sort of sense that like, oh, we're going to bring the women along on this book as well. Right. Like, I don't think, for what it's worth, maybe they do now. But I think when Reacher first came out, they were not like, how are we going to get the women to read this? Right.
Yeah.
But I think when like Lisbeth Salander came out, and everybody was, and women, I mean, every woman I knew was reading that series. I mean, also there was something very like, there was something very rewarding about that book in a lot of ways because of the way the crime was her action felt rewarding in some way. As
well, you love revenge.
I love revenge. I mean, I love revenge, right? I love vengeance.
Who doesn't? I mean,
but
I think the interesting thing, if you look at the 3 original books that were written by Stieg Larsson himself, the first one, "Girl with the Dragon," the 2 is the first one. I think they have different titles in Swedish, so that's why I had to rethink them. It starts like a murder mystery.
Sure.
Right? Someone turns out missing. This person is missing. It's an island, isolated, exotic location, a limited number of suspects. Yep. And we don't know what happened. So it really starts in the same way as a murder mystery and then quickly moves into thriller. And it becomes a thriller instead. But there's still a murder mystery, closed room kind of setting following that whole book that gets, which is one of the other rules when it comes to murder mystery. You have to reveal what happened really at more or less the last chapter, the second of last chapter. Yeah. And so the mystery has to last all the way to there. And hopefully you still have the reader invested all the way to there. And hopefully they'll guess just a little bit wrong. Not too much, not too little, but just a little bit, right?
A little bit. Like a part of it right, at least.
A part of it right.
Is what it is,
Or going, oh, I knew it. Almost. Yeah. Right. Oh, I had it. It just, And the Girl with Dragon 2 is sort of built like that. The main mystery is built like that. And there's a lot of action and other stuff in it as well. And then for the other 2 books, they sort of move into political thriller instead. So there's like a genre shift from the first book to the other 2. Because I think, I don't know this for sure, but I have a good hunch. I think that Stig started it out writing book about Mikael Blomkvist. These are his books, and he's supposed to be the main protagonist. But as he was writing Lisbeth Salander, he realized she's way more fun to write now.
She's so cool. Right. I mean, very sad.
So So and there's when he, of course, but when he was planning them, and there's some letters when he exchanged with his publishers. I'm planning for. He called them Salander 4, 5, and 6. So he called the books after her last name, not Blomqvist 4, 5, and 6. So I think his sort of focus just shifted. I planned this. I'm going to do this. Mikael Blomqvist, and then he goes, but she's a better protagonist, so I'm going to move over in this direction and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's just my theory. And,
no, I think you're right, and I think also there was. I mean, it was so electric the response to those books. I think because of her, and also because, it felt like it was the first time we really saw tech as like a plot point in, again, this kind of how are the stories reflecting the world that we're in. It was right at that time when tech still felt mysterious and maybe scary. I mean, maybe it still feels mysterious and scary, but in a totally new way.
He did one of those mistakes that you should never do. He named the tech.
Oh.
So if you read them now, it's like, yes, she had a MacBook and she had a large. And the memory was 516 megabytes.
Right.
What? My phone has like 80 or so gigs.
Right.
I mean, this is no, she had the latest phone. Yeah, everything is, and you should never do
everything
that.
Everything had a back door. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, it did. It was. You can hack everything, right?
Right.
Whatever kind of number you threw out then was like, wow. And now we go, what? So my phone is way smarter than that. Yeah, but
that's funny. That's really funny.
Well, we all learned that lesson. I didn't realize we learned it from him, but
yeah, let's just say my phone, or maybe the brand. But not even the brand.
Yeah, but that's
it. It's tricky, right? Because sometimes the brand disappear as well, and that really puts like a timestamp on the story for you. Like, this is a really fast phone. And like 3 years later, it's like, wow, this is an antique.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Oliver Heber Books, publishers of Darcy Burke's The Forbidden Duke, now available in a 10th anniversary special edition at Kickstarter.
Okay, so we have spinster Eleanor Lockhart. A decade ago, she ruined her reputation after succumbing to a scoundrel's excessive charm. Ugh. And in the meantime, she's been... Listen.
Who hasn't?
Okay, I'm like all of us. All right, so she was lucky to obtain a position as a paid companion and basically had to commit to essentially behaving with the utmost propriety. She definitely shouldn't be in the arms of a man capable of utterly destroying what little remains of her reputation. That is Titus St. John, the Duke of Kendal. He's known as the Forbidden Duke, a mysterious, intimidating figure who entered society just once each year at his stepmother's ball. A decade ago, he was the devil-may-care rake who ruined Eleanor's reputation and after that sent himself into isolation. Good job. Now she's back and needs his help, but by saving her, he may just be ruining her life all over again. I bet he's ruining something else too.
I love it. If you want to see him ruin just everything around, then you can read The Forbidden Duke right now in print, ebook, or audiobook. And if you'd like to support Darcy and her Kickstarter and get a paperback with a step back or a hardcover with a silk cover and foil layers and gilded edges and the whole nine, then you can head over to Kickstarter and learn more. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title to be taken to learn more. Thanks to Darcy Burke and to Oliver Heber Books for sponsoring this week's episode.
But I guess we were talking about like the final act of the murder mystery is the reveal of who did it and how and what and for murder mystery, like I said, it has to be at the very end. In a police procedural, it could be like in the middle or like early third act, and then the whole suspense moves over to can we actually catch the killer? Now we know who did it, but can we catch him or her? Right. But when it comes to murder mystery, we still have to string the reader along all the way to like the last chapter. And if you're really good, you gather all the suspects and and the detective goes through again. You had a motive and you had a motive, and you go through everyone and you sit there and wait for who actually did it, right? And then finally they go, no, it was actually you. And then you're supposed to be surprised. And that's the final rule of the murder mystery. That has to happen. It cannot happen from a distance or we knew who did it. And someone to arrest the person, it's over. It has to be, confronting the suspect and them denying that they were all at all involved, and then sort of proving that actually how they did it, and
Right.
and
why.
and the whole thing.
And why? Right.
And when you describe, and why, you have to answer all the questions.
Yeah.
So all the questions that you raised in chapter 1 or 2 or in Act 1, they have to have an answer at the end of Act 3 in a murder mystery. For a thriller, you can leave some open. You can do a little bit of a, not too big one, but a little bit of cliffhanger into the next book. You can move some portion of the storytelling. I know this is a mystery that we will continue to solve in the next book. Not too big one, because people hate cliffhangers at the end of books, right? At least if they're plot cliffhangers. Character are fine, plot, no. I guess it's same for romance. No, we don't know. We don't know if they're gonna end up together. We'll see in the next book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens,
So
but
and
people are pissed. Yeah.
yes, and they will tell you. That
They
too,
sure
right?
will.
Yeah.
They sure will.
My final, I think, a remark about the ending of a murder mystery is that, I mean, you can trick the reader, but you can't cheat them, right? So it's okay if they feel a bit tricked, but not cheated.
It has to feel earned. Yeah.
It has to feel earned. So yeah, I knew. Oh, so that's how you made it. You're like a little bit like a magician. Look over here, and you do that over there, and
right.
So but you have to tell them the trick.
And it better
so you have
all
to
be
explain how the bunny got into the rabbit from the beginning. Right?
It better all be on the page from the beginning. I mean, I wrote a series that does have a twist at the end of the third book, and I mean, I vaguely understand that then as the moment the twist happened, and thankfully I knew it was going to be this way, everybody went back immediately to the beginning of the series
and double checked
and was looking to make sure that I had meant it from the beginning.
From the jump.
But I can imagine. And so I guess this is another question. I want to get into craft, where I appreciate that we're taking up a lot of your time, but now I said this was going to be a good conversation.
It's so fun, though.
Yes, it's so much fun.
So I want to get into craft, but I want to talk first of all about point of view. And Jen sort of started talking about this a little bit, like first person versus third person, multiple points of view. Are there, obviously in thrillers, often we get the bad guy's point of view for some chapters, so I wonder, are there kind of general rules that you think of, or is it really open for the whole toolbox?
I would say that murder mystery is typical either first person or like third person. It will be either of those. Like the Christie is typically like third, right? Or it's a first person. There's not much room for a multi-plot in a murder mystery. You could maybe have two protagonists, sort of, which actually is what we do in our stories. We have two, but they tell sort of the same story, but they have each other chapter. But when it comes to like a real multi-plot, I'd say that's more police procedural or thriller. It would because it's also a little bit about the pace, right? If you have multi-plot, you can't have two long chapters with this person, and then there's another one person and the third. So it has to have some sort of a pace as well. So you get back to the first person. But typically you leave, if you have a multi-plot, you leave them at a suspenseful place, right? And then you pick someone else, and the reader wants to know what happened to this guy that you left over here in this abandoned car in the middle of the desert.
In the mine. There's in the mine.
And the one in the mine. What happened, right? So, and I always thought that you can only have like I think it was my editor said, well, if you have a multi-plot, you have to establish that really early, so that the reader would understand that it's going to be a multi-plot. It's going to be 3 or 4 voices going on. You can't just have the one. And I adhered to that for a long time. And then I read the latest Dennis Lehane. It's called. What is it called? It's one that takes place in Boston during the riots in the 60s, which is it's a fantastic book. And it's one person point of view up until like the middle of the book, and then the police
Are you talking about Small Mercies?
He does an interrogation. Yeah, that would probably be the English title. Yeah, it has like a yellow cab or something on the front side.
Doesn't matter. We'll figure it out.
It's and then there's a detective showing up, interviews the protagonist, and then all of a sudden it shifts over to his perspective. And this is in the middle of the book. So I immediately called my editor and said, "You've been telling me all these years we have to. Look what he does. He's the master. Look what he does."
And was this guy like,
now.
"It's Dennis Lehane. He can do whatever he wants"?
Yes. No one edits Dennis Lehane, Anders.
No one edits there. And my editor said, "Yeah, well, if you think it works, then you know." So, but to actually go back to your question, I think the multiplot is more tied into where you have a more pace-driven story, I would say.
Yeah.
What would it be the same in romance or what?
Well, I mean, we have a sort of we have a preference. The two of us have a strong preference to the early. Again, it's sort of the early days of the genre were third person, but very close point. So in this way, I think different than in mystery. Because romance third person and mystery third person are not the same. Romance third person is so deep POV that the omniscient narrator understands the emotions of the character. You're in the feelings.
It's all about
of
feelings.
The character.
Right.
It's called close third in English, and it was invented by Jane Austen. It's sort of that sort of deep feeling. But I think in mystery, at least in all the mysteries I've ever read, it feels a little bit more surface. You can't get that deep into the character because, again, if your rule is
it's plot driven.
I don't want to know what Hercule Poirot's background is, then you can't be in there.
Right. Or like Reacher's point of view is often like the things where when it's third, it's like him like kind of we're watching his brain work. Right? Yeah. Like sort of like running through the potential, right? Like things that happen. And then like Reacher's also a really interesting case because some of the books are in first, right? And then, and I mean, in the third books, we often will like sort of drift out and we'll get other people's point of view if it's kind of interesting or important. And they're just snippets. Like Reacher's really our guy, but we know that might happen. But then in the ones that are in first, you're kind of like, oh, if we knew those things, somehow it would ruin this plot. I understand that it's like for a plotting reason that I'm getting like Reacher alone in this book. Or that Reacher, the book Persuader is one where like he's wrong. He has it all wrong for a big part of it. And you're used to Reacher being right. So to me, that was like a really interesting, I think Reacher's a good test case for like first versus third and what it can do because it's the same character, you know, really intimately in these two different kind of ways. And I don't think many people play around with that, right? Having the same character be third in some books and first in others.
And first is so difficult to write as well because it's difficult to get the reader invested in the person as well when it's all described from up here. So, but I'd say Hercule Poirot is typically up there. You don't hear him think a lot. He describes the way he thinks.
He tells you he's thinking.
The little grey cells are working. You know that whole he talks about it. You're not inside his brain when he's doing the.
I mean, I just think you couldn't be deep inside a mystery, a mystery protagonist's brain, or else you would learn everything before. I mean, you would know the answer,
right?
Or you would think they weren't that smart, which you can't do. They need to be smart, presumably, or is that maybe not true?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely write it. I mean, we write ours in third person, but it's a very light third person, so it's more like what their observations are right now, or maybe when they sit down and try to figure it out together.
Yeah.
And then it's more of a dialogue. So it's not a deep one where you get all their feelings, but it would be like, well, I made this observation here, and you made that observation there, and they're trying to put it together. So it might work, but it can't. You're right. It can't be too deep because again, it's all about the plot and all about the mystery, and the readers want to get to the point where tell me how it's done.
Yeah, tell me how it's done. I don't care about your childhood trauma.
So, don't care about the trauma. No trauma.
Reacher, you clearly have it, but we're never going to get to it. So
with Reacher, honestly, with Reacher, we just want to see him beat up people up.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, in the first book, Reacher's brother is the murder victim.
Yes.
And we don't, he doesn't need therapy.
There's not a whole lot of feelings about that. Like when you say that out loud, you're like, wait, that actually is crazy. But like, he's so invested in figuring out who did it that and we understand, I guess, that one is in first, right? Like we understand that he basically, but still you're like, no. Wait, dude, your brother is dead.
The mourning period is very, very short.
Right? It's like mourning
Reacher reasons. No one cares.
Yeah. It's more of like a shock for the reader than it is for Reacher when he says, "Yeah, I know who that is." That's my brother. End of chapter. And you go, what?
What?
And the chapter is still drinking beer.
Right.
Yeah, come on.
Right. If that was a romance hero, he'd be a Victorian maiden laying in bed all day thinking about his feelings.
Well, he would not be thinking about his feelings at all. He would reacher his way through the second act.
Of course.
And then the heroine would, fix him.
Sure.
Always, right.
Listen, these are not books that you should read for your own personal relationship.
No, no, that's not at all.
But we had a question from my wife and I. We did an interview for a Norwegian newspaper, and we were asked about what characters that we really annoyed us. What literary characters that really annoyed us.
Well, that's a good question.
And we. Yeah, it is. And we really got to think, we could pick someone easy like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, because he's a terrible person.
Sure.
But he's not annoying.
He's not annoying.
He's terrible, but he's not annoying. And finally we ended up with Robert Langdon.
Really? Yeah. Okay, from the Da Vinci Code, everybody.
Hear me out, Da Vinci Code. Yeah. Hear me out here. I mean,
listen, I'm not necessarily
he's the world's... He's
I'm ready.
He's smart. Yes. He's handsome. He's in his 50s something, but all the women he meets are in his 30s, and they all fall for him. He's always the expert of whatever mystery is in that book.
PhD in everything.
Random mystery. He's PhD in everything, and he's brave. And his only little flaw is he has a little bit of claustrophobia, but that's based on an experience in a previous adventure, right? That's his only flaw. And having all these, fantastic features, and still he needs a woman to save him in every book.
Well,
yeah,
right. More or less, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's this woman in the story who really thinks he's the best thing ever.
The best thing ever,
She ends up saving him, typically from situations that he has put them in as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, so
when you look at it that way, he is, I still love the stories, but he is a little bit annoying, isn't he?
He kind of is, yeah. He's like Well, can I ask a question about, at the risk of insulting some people, can I ask a question about James Bond? Where does Bond fall in all of this?
Yeah, we were thinking of he would be on the list as well, because especially the early Bond.
Talk about a person who does not like women. Yeah. So
I mean, he likes women for one reason.
No, I mean Ian Fleming does not like women.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
No. And in the books, he's actually darker as well. He's not at all sympathetic in the book. So no, he would be on the list as well.
I've only ever seen the movies.
Is Bond is thriller? Is that where we set Bond?
Yeah,
I would say yes.
Yeah. Spy
novel.
Right.
So that lives in thriller. Spies.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of suspense. Car chases, boat chases, space chases, whatever chases. Whoever is a chase, you're in the thriller kind of. Yeah.
Is the reason why Bond is so pointed to by people because of the movies? Are the books as rewarding?
No, the books are quite short, and I think that's why they made excellent movies, really, because they're quite short. They're very plot driven. They're not, it was a few years since I read one now, but that they're very, very short stories, and there was a lot for the director and the actor and the screenwriters to do with this hero, I think. So I think maybe that's one of the reasons why the movies are so good, and I think why we like Bond as well, because he's traveled through the ages, right? We remember him from our childhood, and my father remembers him, and he's always been there. He's like a constant. Yeah. It's a bit like Doctor Who is for the Brits, but James Bond is it for the world. So, and he's still become a little bit, at least nicer to women.
Right.
with the new writers. Yeah.
Since the Sean Connery days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
I was with my brother a couple weeks ago. We're about your age. And he was like, let's watch a James Bond movie. And I was like, great idea.
Oh, well, the movies are so fun now.
Yeah, it's like comfort watching. This was our childhood in some ways.
Anders points to Agatha Christie, and one of the questions that we're going to end with is, if we don't really know the pool, where do we start with mystery thriller, psychological thriller? It sounds like we're going to have to sort of parse it in a few different ways. But you point to Agatha Christie. When I asked you this at dinner, you said, "Oh yeah, these books are still fun to read."
I mean, she wrote 60 or so, I think, mysteries, and not all of them are good, but there's some of them are like reference work for when you write a murder mystery, like the Orient Express, Murder on the Orient Express, Evil Under the Sun, I'd say, perhaps Murder on the Nile, and then the one that's called and then there was only one, which is like the and those are still really, really good murder mysteries. They're not very long. They're, I guess, probably about 200 pages or so. And they're still really excellently crafted murder mysteries. So if you just want to get a quick shot of the genre, I'd say Evil Under the Sun is my favorite. But
kids still love to read them too, by the way. Like, this is still a very, like, I teach kids, like middle school kids, and that is still like a really classic, like, on-ramp to mystery for kids. And although now, unlike when we were younger, there is a huge, big, like, sort of YA mystery world, right?
Yeah,
where kids can read books. And some of them, like there's a really classic one called One of Us is Lying that the kids really love, that you can tell just from the title, right? And it, like, is really, like, I think teaching kids, like, sort of the fundamentals of, like, some of these, like, genre things. So, but yeah, I think really good.
Christy, and if you want to read something that's in that genre, but it's slightly more modern, maybe Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club.
Oh yeah,
it's also on Netflix, but the book is actually very good as well. So he's read a lot of Christie. So but it's done in a more modern setting.
For what it's worth, my 12-year-old is obsessed with that on Netflix, and she's home for summer, and every time I go into the living room, she's watching that. So it hits for the middle schoolers apparently too, that show.
I'm very happy to hear that, because it's so cleverly, they're all the underestimated heroes, all of them, because no one listens to them
they're
anymore.
Elderly,
and of course they have their they have the little special skills, all of them, and I'm using the same sort of narrative for the Asker series, because she has some co-workers that have been neglected and put in the basement, but they still under the right circumstances
they're useful.
They can be useful.
Sure, I mean, I love a gang of misfits. That's really
yes.
I mean, it's the A team, right? But make it modern.
Yeah, and you always want to do that, the underestimation. Someone underestimates, and then they perform. They surprise them, right? The Reacher is the same way. Now someone is picking a fight with Reacher again. Yeah, we're 5 against 1. You're gonna get really hurt, and he goes, "No, you're not." So.
The Wire, the first season of The Wire is like Gang of Misfits, right? Like all of those cops have been essentially washed out and are like showing up here, and and then they end up being like the perfect right set of people to bring down this criminal enterprise, right? I mean, one guy's literally like just like painting dollhouse furniture in the basement. He's like, I'm just here to collect my pension, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think like that is, when it is a team, I think that kind of stuff is, very appealing.
Well, it also adds character when it's a team. Like if you're interacting with each other, you have to have more character on the page.
Exactly. And then you have a chance to also develop the different characters in their interaction as well, which is, I'm trying to do that with Asker series as well, because Leo Asker is like a high performer, a little bit edgy, career person, and low patience, high performance, right? And then
same.
Same.
Obnoxious.
Stop judging me.
So what happens? I'm the same, right? So what happens if you put that person against a gang of low performers with no expectations whatsoever, and now she's supposed to manage them, right?
Right.
That's going to be a very interesting dynamics. That's going to make it possible for me to develop all the characters, but especially Asker, because how does she handle this?
How does she handle
I can't just give an order because no one's going to do what I tell them anyhow. So how can I persuade them to do anything useful here? That kind of thing.
It's almost like you.
So it's a great tool.
Worked with a lot of people who gave you some skill sets there.
I tell you this is a true story. I mean, I've been around in a lot of at least European countries, and I have some American friends as well. And whatever I tell them right now, and in the Asker series, they're called a resource department, which is ironic because they're not resources anymore. But in the police, they're called the Department of Lost Souls. That's where the police career goes to die, right? And whenever I tell this, and all the time, I was in Spain not so long ago, and there's a guy walks up to me. I can tell he's a cop, even though he's not in uniform or anything. They have a certain way.
Is that
of
true? See, they always
Most
say that
them,
in books. I'm like, come on, can you really? All right,
you heard it here.
It's the eye contact. If you're a cop or an ex-cop, you keep eye contact for like 2 seconds too long. So a normal person would just go hi and go ahead, but Give it the coffee.
They're like really examining you.
I need 2 more seconds to judge. Right? Have I seen you before? And everywhere I go, they tell me, yeah, we have this. Yes, we have this department as well. Yeah, we know who they are. Yeah, they work over there. And, in Spain they call it Siberia. It's called Siberia.
Sure.
Yeah, you're sent to Siberia. That's their nickname for it. And I think I met 1 or 2 who said, no, we don't have those at all. All right. So I said, so where do you work then?
I was like, that's what I was going to say.
That's
because they work there and they just don't know.
Yeah, that's where you work.
So Anders, I have to ask you a question that I'm sure you get asked all the time about mysteries and probably the thrillers too, but I'm specifically interested in the mysteries. Do you know who's done it when you start the book?
For thrillers, maybe not all of it. If I write a thriller, I've planned 65% of it, and the rest will have to show up when I'm writing it. If I write a murder mystery, it's more or less all 90% planned, because we're writing it together. So we have to agree on a lot of things together. And also for a murder mystery, you typically plan it from the last chapter. So you have to decide who did it, because you have to put all these clues out throughout the story, and all the clues have to fit. They're like pieces of puzzle. It's called in Sweden, it's called a puzzle mystery, which is actually a very good description, because all these little pieces of puzzle, they have to fit in 3 ways, right? So first, the regular reader who just reads the story and says, I know what's going on now. And then you have the clever reader who's read a lot of mysteries before and say, it cannot be this, so it has to be that. And then hopefully there's the third way, what's actually going on, right? So that the real, if you hit a yes, and every clue has to fit in those 3 ways. You can't just have one of them. You have to hit all 3, even though it might not be obvious until they read it at the end. Because if they go back, like they did in your book,
to like find out.
If they go back and double check, yep, it was a red car that passed, but it wasn't the red car I thought it was. So,
Exactly.
So that's why they had to be planned very much more carefully than if it's a thriller. I can let the character go, and then he turned right. He was supposed to turn left according to my plan, but all right, so let's see where we go. Right? But if it's a mystery, it has to stay.
You have to know. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So how and what is it for romance? I mean, how much do you guys plan?
I mean, I think it differs. It's a much more it's a much different situation, because we don't have a red herring. I mean, I think the red herring is sort of in our world, right? The red herring is character driven. It's emotional. So the work is to build the characters up to a place where in the third act, there is a test of the relationship. And this is an emotional test, right? You have 2 characters who at the beginning are unable to love each other or themselves, hopefully. And then as they move through the book, they grow, but then they're tested at the end. So what you really want in that moment is you want the reader to think, it is a mystery in the sense that for the whole book, you want the reader to think, how is this ever going to work out? Like, how are these 2 ever going to be right for each other, or, be ready for each other, or be able to love each other? And then in the third act, there is what we refer to as the third act breakup, which is the moment in any
third act breakup.
Yeah. Right. Where, it's like, basically, it's like,
you have it too. It's when all is lost, right? It's the all is lost.
Right.
Yeah, all is lost. Yep. Yep, the low point. Yes.
Well, and it's like I could go back to my regular life, and I might be too afraid or too whatever to like sort of really change my life, and falling in love should change your life. And so at this moment, it's someone really sort of being like, I could go back to the way it was. I was safe. I knew what to expect, but now there's this person making my life more difficult. Is it worth it?
And you want that moment for the reader to be heartbreaking. You want it to feel like, oh my gosh, that it won't happen now. Like everything is lost. And so it feels in that moment, that's really but it's really about, tightening the spring emotionally through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Though, of course, we also, there are romantic suspense writers who layer in a suspense plot, or, my books are very plot heavy in the sense of, there's always a MacGuffin or like something that's moving them along. But yeah, for us, it's all emotion, which is, a challenge in its own right. Keeping readers
it's so funny because what we're really, dear listeners, what we're talking about here is how we manipulate you to feel things about these characters that we made up, and what strings, emotional strings, we're playing at on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout the book, that's what we're doing. We're just using different strings, but it's still, we want you to feel all these things and invest in the characters, and so we have all these little tricks to do it. But it's some of them are the same, and some. But you're right. It's like loading a spring, but you're just using different type of force.
Yeah,
loading
it's like a different force, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think in a good mystery, like if you knew the answer, if you knew who the murderer was and who did it at the beginning, you wouldn't really finish reading. And I think in romance, this question Sarah poses is why can't they be together right now? If they can be together right now, or if they are together right now, then the book is done.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have what it takes. And so the question that you're trying to answer in a romance is that one. Right? Why can't they be together right now? There's got to be some sort of reason. What is it?
So, Anders, let's talk about your books. If people are going to, our listeners are, I'm sure, obsessed and want to go and read books by you. The
King of the Mountain.
The mystery.
Someone read it and tell me what happened to the lady in the.
It's in Jen's fridge, in the freezer. We'll get it out.
I need someone to read it and tell me what happens, then I will continue.
It never comes out of the freezer.
So the mysteries are not in the U.S. yet. Is that correct?
No, they're not in the US yet. The Asker series is, so you have the Mountain King that's out, and the Glass Man, who's the second one, and the third one called the Rust Forest is out in a couple of months, I think.
Okay.
Does someone else do the translation? You write in Swedish and then someone else does it, and then do you read it and say no, that's not what I meant? I was curious about this.
For English, I do. But I'm translating into a lot of languages that I don't understand whatsoever. Yeah. Even my name looks different on the on the jacket. So, but I try to at least browse through the English ones because you're a huge market, but also because some of the other translations are made from English to Japanese. It's not a big market from Swedish to Japanese.
That makes sense. The English is sort of
have to be careful.
And at some point, I had a UK translator. Who translated it, and then the US publisher then translated them into US English, which made it really funny for me because I had a full day where I went through and they made little notes where I had to approve those certain words, and it was a lot about just the bad words, really, because it turns out that the English swear words are very different from the American
they have some
ones.
that are very casual.
I had a full working day where I went, is this or is this not the F word? Let's see.
Very serious literary work.
I'm sorry. I know that was a distraction from Sarah's question, but I really was curious about that.
I try. They like me to read through it and approve everything. I've just said, if it's a language thing, if it's escalator to elevator or escalator or lift or whatever, that's your language. I don't have to approve all these. If there's something wrong with the plot, we think there's a plot hole or something, of course I want to see that and we can talk about it. And sometimes it's cultural things that that doesn't make sense in the US. Or I remember one book way long ago that there was a flat tire. And then my US publisher said, well, flat tire, you just call AAA, right? So AAA will be there in 20 minutes. I know, we don't have AAA. Or
You're tell me about that.
And he's on an island where there's a ferry that passes once every hour. So it's not going to be...
That's kind of weird.
And also, why is he changing his tire himself? Because we're Swedes, right? We're used to assembling our own furniture. A spare tire is no problem whatsoever.
Now you have a good plot idea, though, because it would be an American. You could just strand anywhere because we'd be I don't know. There's no AAA.
I can't get self-purchase. How do I change
I guess I'm going to die here.
Every Swede, we carry an IKEA, one of these in our pocket. And every time we're there, right? So.
Canadians always have a bottle opener with them. That's actually science. So you can add that.
But Anders, in the future, now you can just say this is for thriller reasons. He's alone on this.
For thriller reasons, yes.
Thriller reasons.
Breakup. I like the third act breakup more than All Is Lost because third act breakup is a really good. This is the third
act. Very
evocative,
right?
It's some good stuff. I was thinking one of more of those archetypes when I saw one of the sitcoms. I don't remember which one the other day. When it's it's just his sister or it's just her brother. you know, one of the protagonists goes home to declare their love for this person, and there's another person opening the door, and it's a same-sex person there, and goes, oh no, he has a girlfriend. Oh no, she has a boyfriend, and it's always the brother or the cousin or someone visiting from out of town.
A perfect misunderstanding, exactly.
Oh yeah, that's it. The perfect misunderstanding. I remember that's it. Yeah. That would be the equivalent. The suspense equivalent would be the call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
We think that the threat is on the outside, but it turns out the threat is on the inside. Yeah. So,
but it's actually your partner in.
Could be your partner.
I'm fascinated with like single genre tropes, like the final girl in horror, right? Is like the idea that like there's going to be the last person standing is going to be a woman, right? Everyone else is going to fall away, and then it's just going to be her and the murderer, you know, but it's not just like a regular murderer in horror, right? So I am really fascinated with like the language of genre. Yeah.
It's always going to be like the sports jock first, and then it's going to be the promiscuous girl, right? And then it's going to be the funny guy.
Right, exactly. And then it's the final girl, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the fascinating, I said it, we're watching Widow's Bay. And like the Monster of the Week thing is really interesting to me because they are really playing with tropes in horror, right? Like there's at one point somebody references like a clown. And I'm like, oh no. There's going to be a clown on this island. But what's cool about that is I am not a traditional, I don't watch a lot of horror. I'm kind of a scaredy cat. But there is a real joy. You still get that joyful, like, oh, there's going to be a clown, or that sort of dreading, like there's going to be a clown. And I just think I'm just delighted by genre always, because it feels like it just has such wonderful boundaries and rules and guardrails, but like they're there to bring us joy as readers and viewers,
right?
And I just, I love it. I love it.
I mean, it's a little bit like you have this wonderful American expression. We call something you call comfort food. We don't have anything like that in Swedish or in UK. Comfort food, and sometimes it's like a comfort read as well. You recognize it, and this is something that makes you feel things, but it's still, you recognize it. It's familiar, even though it's scary. It's still familiar. Yeah. So it's like. Sometimes it's like a comfort read, I guess.
Yeah. The lights go out, there's a dead body, and you're kicking your feet because you're like, I know where I feel great.
Who did it? Was it the Colonel? Was it the widow or the
Bring in the Americans.
With no money, or bring in the Americans with poor taste. Yes.
Anders, so the new book is out in November. So you have, is that right, November?
I think so.
So you have time
I think you're right.
to read the whole series and catch up and be ready in November for the next book. And then, Simon & Schuster, get on it.
The third book's
Bring those mysteries over
Rust
here.
Forest. So it's the Mountain King, the Glass Man, and it's the Rust Forest that's out in November. Rust Forest.
Great. And are the mysteries available in the UK?
No, not yet. But we're only like 3 books into the series, so they haven't been translated ever. So not in English.
Well, we're going to wait
unless
you speak. If you speak Swedish, go get those mysteries as well. And this is so great, Anders. Please come back again sometime to talk more.
Be happy to. This was so much fun. I have so many things written down here.
Same. I took notes the whole time. I'm really interested in that puzzle idea. Like you need to entertain 3. You need to be doing 3 different things at the same time. Anyway, this was so great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy we made this happen. And and we can't wait for the new book. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. Yeah.